Want to learn about public policy with a group of curious fellow learners? Apply for the 12-week graduate certificate in public policy. Early bird deadline closes 27th July.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast by the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like bringing fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and Indian perspectives to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Welcome to part 2 of our special series on India's big cat strategy. In the first episode, we explored the trajectory of cheetah reintroduction and lion conservation. Today, we turn our attention to the deeper fault lines: habitat saturation, human-wildlife conflict, stalled translocations, and the need for better coordination across ministries and landscapes. What does the future of big cat conservation really demand? Let's find out. Moving on from Project Cheetah, I think there's a lot to unpack there, and we'll have to spend a couple of years to sort of really understand the successes and failures of this project. But the Asiatic lion census that came out in May, something that was unfortunately missed from our news cycles, but Gujarat's 2025 lion census recorded 891 lions, which was, if I'm not wrong, about a 32% rise since the last census in 2020. While the state government has been hailed in this conservation victory, some experts have warned of emerging risks like diseases, conflicts, and habitat saturation. What's your assessment of the health and sustainability of Gujarat's lion population today? Considering also that the Asiatic lions are only found in Gujarat, right? In the wild. I mean, there are some in Iran, as per my knowledge goes, but in the wild, Asiatic lions are only found in Gujarat now.
Yeah, I think Asiatic lions are not found anywhere else but Gujarat. So that is the only population that exists on Earth. See, I would say the population has gone up, and the difference between tiger numbers and lion numbers, we have to understand that in lion, it is a total count. It is actually census. Census meaning it's an absolute count, because lions are easier to detect. They are quite noisy because they are pride loving. There is a lot of communication that goes on, which means a pride will join in to call in the evenings or early mornings. So it's easy to detect them.
Right.
And Gujarat is the only place, and Gujarat takes pride in conserving lions. The forest department has a very good network there, which means they know where every single lion is. So the count that you have actually includes every single lion, which means even newborn cubs are part of that number. Okay, whereas in
Okay.
tigers, we only count animals which are more than
Adults.
1 year. More than 1 year. In
Right.
the past, it used to be more than 20 months, but now that population that has gone down to larger, older than 12 months. So,
Understood.
so this population growth that we talk of will have to be taken with a pinch of salt, because there is going to be mortality between the time when they are born till they reach about 15 months. But we are still comparing apple to apple, because in Gujarat they've always been having total counts. So the previous number also included all cubs, right? So it used to be
Right.
723, if I'm not mistaken, about 5 years ago. And this count or census happens every 5 years, and now it's about, as you said, about 891. So the population of lions will not go up. As I told you, large carnivores are barometers of ecosystems, which means their population will not grow if there isn't enough food and enough habitat. Now, you understand that these 891 lions, about 300 are inside the Gir National Park and Sanctuary. In Gir National Park and Sanctuary is about 1400 kilometers. Okay, that's it. So they have two others, the Girnar Sanctuary, the Balda Sanctuary. So these are tinier, much tinier than Gir. So there are only 3 or 4 protected areas where, so which contribute to this number. most other lions live outside protected areas. So out of 891, I mean, I don't know exact distribution between protected area and non-protected area, but I would say more than 50% of Gujarat's lion are living alongside people in farmlands, in riverine tracks that are passing through farms, along the corridors and all that. So that population does go in for nilgai and pigs, but a lot of their food also comes from cattle, cows, as well as buffaloes, because these are pride loving animals, unlike leopards and tigers. Tigers live a solitary life, so they can do with spotted deer kill. Whereas a lion pride, which has 5 to 10 to 15 animals, they will always have to go for much larger prey because otherwise it won't last. So when there are cubs and rapidly growing cubs in a pride, they will need a large-sized kill pretty much every 3 4 days. So if the population has gone
Right.
up, definitely there has been enough food, and this food obviously is a mixture of wild and domestic. Another interpretation of the increase in number means that while they are killing cattle outside Gir and other 2 or 3 protected areas, people are not retaliating, which means the Gujarat government is probably paying compensation rapidly to people, and the compensation is good enough to not enrage people, because if they start impacting their livelihoods, then people will get angry. But because of the rapid compensation, because of the monitoring that probably the government is doing, people are not really retaliating, because otherwise it is even with tigers, you see in several states that are not performing well. If a tiger were to kill cattle, there are many states where people will go and poison the cattle. When the tiger comes to eat from the carcass again, it dies of poisoning. In case of lions, it has happened, but it is very, very rare, which means culturally, people in Gujarat are far more accepting of lions. Another thing is about behavior. Lions, as I said, are far more noisier than other cats, which means it is most people will know that there are lions close to their house or in their farms or near their village, which means that they don't by mistake walk into a pride of lion, because they know where these lions are, and so they are not as scared of them as they would be of some a far more shy animal like a leopard or a tiger. And so that also behaviorally somewhere people understand where they are, and so there are not many skirmishes, but every year definitely there is conflict. There are people who get attacked by lions, some of them lose lives also, and there are lions who get killed either on roads or on railway tracks, or are electrocuted or poisoned. So these things do happen, but the fact that their population has gone up tells us that there is an upward trajectory, which means there is enough food for them. But this food, you have to understand, is not all wild. There is a lot of domestic animals, so this population cannot go up the way it is going. So somewhere the government has to understand that this is not like a GDP where you are happy if it goes up steadily. So there will be a point where it will be very, very difficult politically to protect these lions. So Gujarat government, while it should take pride in the increasing number, they have to put a strategy in place so that the number is now controlled. And this can be done through many things, including contraception, including giving some of those lions to other states that are willing to accept them, and somewhere removing animals which are become potentially dangerous and not allow them to live in the. And that I think they do, because I have been to Gir, and I know that their rescue teams are very, very proficient. As soon as they come to know that there is an incident, they reach there. They have 9 such teams, extremely well equipped. There is no dearth of funding, and also these are very trained. And so whenever there is a lion that crosses the line, literally, that line is picked up rapidly. But we'll have going forward, we have to basically find ways of stabilizing this population rather than allowing it to grow the way it is growing, because there could be a tipping point beyond which people will lose the patience and tolerance, and then that will uh, be extremely risky, and suddenly this population can plummet. You could have a year or two where people, because of the anger they have, because of the damage that a large carnivore can do to a community, you may have a spate of poisoning incidences, and you may lose 100 or 200 lions in no time. And so, yes, plus the disease issue that you mentioned, lions, it has happened in the past. Canine distemper has killed an entire pride. So there are many diseases that can jump from dogs and other carnivores into lions, and from lions into other carnivores. And so if a population is very thick, and if all of it is contiguous, then a disease can really swipe through the entire population. Anthrax, for instance, that has happened in Africa. Those kind of airborne diseases can really create a lot of mortality. So one will have to put all the systems in place. I'm sure there are systems, but we need to be very, very watchful to detect disease, to inoculate dogs, to control dog population, to make sure that wild prey densities go up, to manage the domestic animals so that they are not left loose, they are kept in corral so that they don't get unlimited food. What happens in nature? So if you are having,
Mm-hmm.
say, 4,000 square kilometer touched habitat, lions will compete with lions for wild prey, and only the most dominant animals will survive. Males will kill or push older males away. Young males will come in, push the older males away. They will then kill all the cubs of the older males and then impregnate the females that are there. So that is the social structure of, that's how lions, wild untouched populations of lions behave. But when you are in this kind of situation where food is unlimited because of cattle, the
Yeah.
the mortality rates, natural mortality rates, go down. As a result, the
Mm-hmm.
population grows abnormally fast, which means much faster than it would in a natural ecosystem where lion population is controlled by lions. Here in Gujarat,
Mm-hmm.
that's not happening because pretty much all multiple use areas are becoming lion habitats. So there is no limit to the areas where lion can walk. There are lions on the beach. They've gone all the way to Porbandar in Diu and so many areas. They are every year expanding. There, if you look at the actual distribution of lions in Gujarat, if you draw a circle around all those places where they are found, then they occupy nearly 30,000 square kilometers of Gujarat. If you add all the sanctuaries and national park area, I think it will not be even 2,000 square kilometers out of this 30,000 square kilometers. So they are actually 28,000 square kilometers of the lion distribution area is actually outside PA, which is
Wow.
unique, but we cannot kind of sit and relax and be complacent about it because it can really backfire.
Absolutely. We've seen videos on social media of lions also getting into urban areas. So I think when it comes to wildlife conservation, the conversation about human animal conflict is also bound to stay. And as you have already detailed it for us, I personally believe that conservation cannot happen without taking native indigenous communities in confidence and making them a part of the bigger conservation plan. But moving on from conservation practices, I want to know that big cat projects often involve multiple ministries, right? The environment, tourism, tribal affairs, and state governments. Do we need a stronger institutional framework or interministerial mechanisms to sort of coordinate conservation decision making more effectively?
Well, see, I would say the conservation, meaning the protection, the onus of protecting any wildlife in India falls on the Ministry of Forest and Environment and Climate Change. Hmm?
Mm-hmm.
It's a concurrent subject which both state and center have a role to play in it. So that's how the actual protection mechanism in the country works. But if you look at sustaining animals, if they were all inside protected areas, then you will not require any other ministry. This ministry will control it. But as it is, animals, none of our protected areas are walled, which means animals are free ranging, which means every year there is dispersal and there is wildlife outside. A lot of tigers also live outside protected areas. In that kind of a situation, definitely you need a multidisciplinary approach. A lot of ministries then start becoming relevant, because you will have the transport ministry who's planning road, who's planning railways. Railways will also play a role. Then you will have the energy ministry, where, because we are already having plans to expand your thermal power plants, which means mining. Then it comes to the irrigation department, where you're looking at big dams, and India is building dams by the second, because there is need
Right.
for water. Uh, Agriculture aspect. So India requires a lot of water, because our agriculture is very inefficient in terms of usage of water. Most of our crops
Mm-hmm.
and all our practices are such that we are using many times more water than what is required. So the biggest consumer of surface water is the farming community. Okay, so that
Right.
ministry has a role to play. If we can educate the farmers so that the consumption of water can come down, the stress on our natural ecosystems will come down, because the requirement of water will go down. You will not need too many dams, and if you don't need dams, then obviously you will have that much area available to wildlife. The corridors will be intact, and if corridors are intact, the human wildlife conflict incidences will go down. But all these ministries currently play a role, because development, as I said, is going at a breakneck speed. And so when we talk of conservation of a species, if it's about protection, then Ministry of Forest and Environment. But now that we are talking about wildlife in general, obviously you will have all these ministries which um, uh, are influencing India's land use patterns. They have to come and work in conjunction with the Ministry of Forest, Environment, and Climate Change. In fact, in all other developmental projects, they should take opinion of the MOEFCC, so that they are not loggerheads. Because many times in the past we have seen that one ministry is actually uh, at loggerheads with the other one, and they are counterproductive to each other. And that will not happen if they are integrated at the planning stage. Many of these developmental projects that come for clearances to the wildlife boards of states and also of the
Yeah.
center, they've already started work outside. When a road reaches the protected areas, where the project proponent comes to the forest department for a no objection certificate, NOC. And that is when the forest department kind of realizes that this is a project that's going to cut through pristine habitat. And obviously the reports that will come out will say that you cannot have this, but the road has already been built. So there is so much of investment that has already gone. And if the forest department stops the road from widening inside a protected area, or in the buffer zone of a tiger reserve, or in the
Mm-hmm.
corridor, then the MOEFCC is viewed as an impediment to growth. However,
Right.
if the project proponents had consulted, or if they had documents in front of them which had mapped corridors or no-go regions, and it could be forest, it could be grassland, it could be mangrove swamps, it could be deserts. All these are important ecosystems. And when I say forest, because forest is what our Wildlife Protection Act also keeps talking about, but I'm talking about all ecosystems. They need to
Mm-hmm.
consult uh, MOFCC at the time of planning and inception. So they will know for sure that if a road is going to, if you have to connect Bombay with Delhi, then what should be the trajectory of the road, so that it doesn't cut through the last remaining protected areas or corridors. Because why do we need to stop development the existing ecosystems? The answer is that India has only 5% of India's landmass is under the protected area network, which means only 5% of India is either national park, sanctuary, conservation reserve, or community reserve. So it's a very
Right.
small area. Around 2.5% of India's landmass is under Project Tiger. There are 58 tiger reserves, and each tiger reserve is divided into a core and a buffer zone, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and if you add areas of every single tiger reserve, it is about 2.5% of the country. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the number of rivers originating from this small 5% or another, I would say about 6.5% of area, it is about 600 rivers that are originating from or are being fed by tiger bearing forest alone. And I'm talking about tigers alone. You can also add to
Mm-hmm.
that other species like the bustard or the snow leopard or elephants. If you look at such species and areas which have been earmarked uh, for protection of these species, then pretty much all of our drinking water, surface water, is originating or is being fed by areas which have been protected by law to conserve species. So, species conservation
Mm-hmm.
not only meant to conserve species. Strategically, these areas have been protected from human interference, and somewhere we are forgetting that bit, and we are only making it
Right.
about animals like elephants, rhinos, tigers, and most people therefore feel that tigers are creating problems for people. But actually, if there were no
Yeah.
tigers, I would say the symbol tiger, if the mascot tiger was not there, we would have lost another 2.5% of our country to some kind of development or degradation. And we would have had crisis because just from the tiger reserves, 300 rivers are originating just from
Mm-hmm.
these 58 tiger reserves. And so, what would have happened to those headwaters? They would have all, you would have dry river basins by now, and you would have a huge amount of social unrest, which would have led to a law and order situation by now. And eventually, such things, when they happen, and you know across the planet that wherever there is extreme kind of dissonance or say social unrest, it fuels extremism. Eventually that leads to huge amount of outward migration. And think 1.5 billion Indians, if they decide to move out of the country because it's not worth living, because we have destroyed or degraded our natural habitats, what will happen to the planet? The planet is going to be destabilized. Already a lot of countries, you see there are mass refugee situations, Bangladesh and a lot of other countries in the Middle East, also Eastern Europe. And you see it even in South America, where people are willing to risk their lives to move into another more prosperous country. So think if India becomes unstable because we have destroyed our natural ecosystems, which are producing free of cost oxygen, water, soil, and regulating our temperatures, we are going to take the planet down with us. So Indian government, while we consider the West as a pole star and we want to follow that kind of growth trajectory, we need to also learn from the damage that those countries have done to their own ecosystems in achieving the GDP that they have. So they didn't have any
Absolutely.
example when they were exploding in terms of technology or development, as it's called. India has examples of the West to know exactly what we shouldn't be doing. So we are actually pretty smart. There is a lot of talented people in the country. All we have to do is to put all our learnings to take an energy efficient trajectory, which means to use nature as your pole star, and all other developmental projects should come in such a way that the existing green infrastructure, that is forest and grasslands and other things, are not negatively impacted by our developmental plans. So if we keep nature as a pole star and then decide a developmental trajectory, I think India will be a force to reckon with within the next 20-25 years. but that's difficult to do, and we need to liquidate. So it's very easy to liquidate natural ecosystems because you don't have to displace people. It's very easy to convert a forest into non-forest for non-forest activities. Permissions can come easy once they get clearance from the boards of wildlife. If you had to do the same thing in Bombay, if you were to place five big gated communities, you will have 5,000 cases in the court against the project proponent. But the same amount of land can be converted from forest into non-forest without anybody understanding. Like building a dam somewhere, nobody goes and talks to the trees that are going to be rooted, or the trillion microbes that are in the soil and that are playing a big role in giving us the income services that we are getting, but we don't need their consent, right? So it's very easy
Yeah.
to liquidate last 5% of the country, which is actually fueling life in India, which is supporting agriculture, which is supporting nearly 60%, 65% of Indians who are still practicing agriculture. So we have to make those connections. Students learn this in school, but somewhere as they grow and as they get into this business of making money, they somehow try to take the easy way out. And I think India has the education, the kind of people that are required to come up with a strategy for a far more greener trajectory to development. And I think if we are the only country, we are in a place where we can do this because, somebody was saying that the number of roads that are going to be in India in 2050 um, are going to double uh, the roads that we already have, which means half of our country or half of our development that we are going to have in by 2050 is not even done, which means we have such a great opportunity to put the best practices which doesn't shortchange ecology. So ecology is the bedrock of economy, and if we somehow shortchange ecology, then your economy will maybe shoot in the initial stages, but eventually it will drop and drop so fast that you will have to
Yeah.
eventually vacate this country.
Wow, that's a very powerful note to end on. And it's a good reminder that conservation success hinges as much as on ecological intent as it does on institutional coordination. And India's big cat story is one of ambition, complexity, and critical decision making. So, thank you, Anish, for helping us unpack the science, ethics, and the policy behind the headlines that we see. Until next time, thank you for listening to All Things Policy, and thank you, Anish, for joining us and giving us your great insights on the big cat story.
Thank you, Aishwarya. It was good. It was good to talk about just talking about wildlife without looking at economy and development is actually not even, it's just one side of the coin. Unless we talk of both together, we are not going to get anywhere. It's not either or, both have to happen. So we'll have to balance development and conservation. They are not against each other. It's not versus, not development
Yeah.
is not versus, not against conservation. It should be conservation friendly development.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
If you liked our show, dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs. Check us out at our Twitter handle @Takshashila INST or our website takshashila.org.in.